Welcome back to the 12 Days of Gunpla, -1. I'm your host, Second Soundwave. On the third day, we're looking at none other than the high-grade Gundam Build Fighters, GM Jim. The Jim Jim's probably the closest thing we have right now to a Jim Revive. Even though we got a Gundam RX-78 Revive back in 2015, Bandai still hasn't given the same treatment to the Jim. Now realistically, they are most likely going to make a Jim Revive in the future, but to tide us over until then, they made this. Okay, that's enough box, let's get to the good stuff. Jim Jim's a pretty small kit, so there's only 7 runners in the box. As far as I can tell, this is all new parts, with most of the runners being labeled Jim Jim, except for the C runner, which is labeled HGBF1. I'm not sure if this is something they've reused from another model, or if they're just thinking ahead. I want to say that I really like the sticker sheet for this kit, but I don't know, I just don't think it has enough green on it. This is a Build Fighters kit, so of course the manual is going to have some interesting stuff to read up on. Right off the bat, we got some in-universe information about the GM as well as the Gunpla Mafia. And then on the inside, there's this really cool spread that talks about all the different GM variants we've gotten, and just generally features the GM and everything it can do. This is one of my favorite parts about the Gundam Build Fighters manuals. It really makes them stand out and feel unique among all the other high grades we've gotten. Further on inside the manual, we have a parts list, and what surprises me here is that the C runner is basically half discarded. I have no idea what runner this was from originally, but it's very obviously not one that was designed for this kit. Aesthetically, the Jim Jim is an interesting piece. When you set the Jim Jim beside the RX-78 Revive, it becomes very clear that this is not your granddaddy's Jim. The proportions and stylization of the original GM have been drastically altered, giving the new Jim Jim a much more dynamic, action-oriented feel. Overall, the Jim Jim feels less like a mass-produced Gundam and more like the Bill Burning Gundam cosplaying as the original Jim. But while the Jim Jim doesn't share the Gundam Revive's aesthetic stylings, they do have one more thing in common. They're absolutely kick-ass mobility. Head moves down, way farther up than it should. Rotation. In his chest, he has the same spreading mechanism as the Build Burning Gundam, only with a wonderful, wonderful click. Shoulder goes up and around. Double jointed elbow. And he's got the Build Burning Gundam style hands, so his wrist can go backwards and forwards. Torso moves from here to here, the waist on a rotation. The saber holster can wiggle around. Front skirt's up, side skirt goes up. Barely. Hips go out, forwards, and backwards. There's a thigh rotation, that useless pelvic joint, double jointed knee. The ankle moves from here to here, and from here to here. The ankle guard moves up and down independently, which is good because his ankles are pretty ugly. Not only does the Jim Jim have enough articulation to pull off any pose a GM should, it can pull off any pose you could possibly dream of. The only things limiting the Jim Jim are your own imagination and maybe also the number of other kits you can borrow accessories from. Because the Jim Jim, unfortunately, doesn't come with a whole heck of a lot. What you do get is a stylized version of the classic Gundam/GM shield with a spike protruding from the front, and what appears to be a completely unchanged BM spray gun. The only other accessories you get are a pretty bog standard pair of beam sabers. When you're not using the beam sabers, you can either store the handles behind the shield, or you can mount one of them on his backpack. Fortunately, Bandai came up with a pretty awesome way to make up for this guy's lack of weapons. Because nothing screams army builder like alternate heads. In addition to the standard type GM head you've already seen, you also get a commander head. I've always loved the way the GM commander type's head looked, and I'm very happy to see it in this kit. The final head option you get is a G-Dome helmet. Now I don't think this one looks as good on the Jim Jim, but it's a great excuse to army build some high-grade Gundam X's. And thanks to the universal neck joints of almost every high grade, these heads can be used on a whole lot more than just the Jim Jim. While I would love to just head swap Jims for the rest of the day, there is one more cool feature on the Jim Jim that I need to talk about. When I recommended cannibalizing weapons from other kits earlier, that wasn't just a personal recommendation. That was an actual advertised feature of the kit. He's got standardized ports in his backpack, forearms, waist, and legs. If you have any spare option parts lying around, this is the kit to use them on. In case you haven't figured it out yet, I love this kit. The Jim Jim gets a big thumbs up and a strong recommendation from me. I especially recommend this kit to beginners and absolutely recommend this kit to customizers. Even if you're not a GM fan, there's a great blank body here that you can turn into just about anything. I'm Second Soundwave, thank you for watching. As always, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and be sure to come back tomorrow as I continue the 12 Days of Gunpla, -1. Take care, guys.